Right, so I just put my hair back because I want it out of my face so that it will be easier for you guys to actually see the application of the product. So I have my two sponges here. This is the classic beauty blender. It retails for $20 US, which really roughly translates to about $130 or $140 depending on the US exchange rate at that point in time. And this is the blend Gyal from Imagine Cosmetics, and it retails for $60 TT. So right off the bat, the blend Gyal is half the price roughly of the classic beauty blender. Now, watching the two sponges together, you can see that the blend Gyal is significantly bigger than the beauty blender. The blend Gyal is about twice the size of the beauty blender, and both of these sponges are wet at this point in time. In terms of the feel of it, when you feel the blend Gyal, it's soft, it's very soft. The material feels very similar to the beauty blender itself. The beauty blender is a little bit more dense than the blend Gyal. It's not so much that it should alter the application using this product. So I'm going to use this side of my face for the blend Gyal and this side of my face for the beauty blender. I'm going to compare and contrast to see if there's any significant difference with the application, or if they are quite comparable, then why not go for something more affordable and support another local business person by buying her products. So my face is now prepped and ready for application. So I'm going to start off using my foundation. The foundation that I'm using today is the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk, and I usually mix two shades together to get my perfect shade. I'm going to start off with the blend Gyal. It's wet, but it's not soaking. Now, the blend Gyal claims to be quite comparable to the beauty blender, and some of the claims of the sponge is that it's supposed to apply your makeup flawlessly. So be it foundation and cream products, powdered products is supposed to apply it flawlessly, and the pores of the sponge are supposed to mimic the pores of skin to give a very skin-like appearance when applying the products to the skin. So it's supposed to look as natural, quote unquote, as possible while using makeup. So this is the first layer of foundation. I do suffer with post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, especially on my cheek area, and I usually apply a little extra in that area. So far, I really like the application of the foundation. Using beauty blenders and beauty sponges of this nature usually don't apply products in a very thick manner. They usually tend to share out product, which is something that I expect anyway. They don't tend to pack product on as a brush would. So I know that I would have to apply extra product in my problem areas, which is nothing new to me, and it doesn't surprise me, or it's not a con of this product. It's actually a pro, especially if it is you make a mistake and apply too much product. You can always share it out using a beauty sponge. So I'm just going to apply a little bit more of the foundation in my problem areas, just because I expect it to be a little bit more problematic. So far, the application is quite skin-like and quite flawless. And you can tell for yourself the way my skin looks. It's very natural looking. Doesn't look like an excessive amount of product has been placed on the skin, which I like, and the product is extremely soft on the skin as well. Right, so now I'm going to apply foundation to this side of my face using the beauty blender. I have the same problem on this side of my face with hyperpigmentation, so I will have to go over with a few extra product. But this is the first application using the beauty blender side, and as you can see, you definitely can't see a significant difference with respect to the application of the product using the blend Gyal versus the beauty blender. Now, using the beauty blender, it does again share down product, which I do expect from a beauty sponge, so it will require extra care in certain areas that has a little bit of my flaws, which is something that I do expect. While using the beauty blender on my face, I can still feel that the beauty blender is a little bit denser when applying. It's not as soft as the blend Gyal when applying the foundation, which may not necessarily be a flaw or may not necessarily be something that would bother you, but I do notice a significant difference. More so when applying the product than when just squeezing the sponge, just something to note. So I'm going to apply a little bit more in my problem areas. Right, so in terms of foundation application, the Beauty Blender and the Blend Gyal are quite comparable. You can see it from my face. This is the side using the Blend Gyal and this is the side using the Beauty Blender, and there is no significant difference in terms of the foundation application. Both products share out the foundation, and I had to apply a little bit extra in the areas that I normally do have a little bit of hyperpigmentation. In terms of the finish of it, both sides are very skin-like in terms of they don't look very cakey, but I will say that I do notice a difference in the side with the Blend Gyal. The product has settled a little bit better onto the skin than the side with the Beauty Blender. This area still looks a little bit significantly wetter and not as like infiltrated into my pores as the side with the Blend Gyal. Yeah, it doesn't really change a lot in terms of the comparison. The next thing that I usually apply when doing my makeup is my concealer, and I'm going to use the Tarte Shape Tape, and I'm applying it under my eye just like I would normally. So I'm going to do the Blend Gyal area first. It does blend the product very easily out into my skin. I actually like the way the sponge feels under my eye area because of how soft it is. It doesn't tug, and it feels really soft. So that's something to be mindful of in those delicate areas. We're going to put the same amount of product in the same areas using the Beauty Blender. So looking head on, using the Beauty Blender side, you can actually see that the Beauty Blender side doesn't share out the concealer as much as the Blend Gyal side. The Blend Gyal side seems to be a little bit more shared out than the Beauty Blender. That tends to be a little bit less shared out. I'm not sure if it's because the sponge feels a little bit denser than the Blend Gyal. Just from side by side initially, and I had to work a little bit more with the Beauty Blender side to share it out so that it matches equally. Of course, if you're doing your foundation using one sponge, you would not notice a significant difference. But in terms of coverage, both sides did a phenomenal job and they look equally as good. So the next thing in my beauty routine would be my contouring, and I use the Fenty Matchstick in the shade Cocoa. So I'm just going to put in my usual areas. So I'm using the Blend Gyal side first as usual. Put there. Put along my hairline. And then put one swipe further back on my jawline. And I tend to blend my contour back into my scalp because my scalp is so light when compared to the rest of my skin. It doesn't get any sunlight with this thick, curly jumbo hair. In terms of the blending out, that was really super easy. It's actually significantly easier to blend out using the Blend Gyal than my brush that I normally use. The brush I normally use for contour blending is the sculpting brush by Real Techniques. It's actually significantly easier to use the Blend Gyal to blend it out because that took me no time at all to blend my forehead contour. One thing I would say about beauty sponges and using it on cheek contour is that it is a little bit difficult because it is rounded. And this sponge is a little bit more difficult to work with because of how fat it gets when it's wet. So you have to just kind of like scrunch a little bit to get it to fit in there. And you might not get as precise of a contour, but it will blend it out nicely. So I guess that's the trade-off. So that is the contour on the cheek blended out. Like I said, it's not as precise as it normally would be. This brush is usually angled and chiseled, so it's easier to get that contour out, but I don't really mind because I have naturally high cheekbones, so it doesn't really bother me as much. But you can see the difference with the contour. This side is contoured and this side is not, and you can actually see more of the definition at my cheek line. So next we're going to go in with the same contour and using the Beauty Blender. Same areas, and I'm going to see technique really. So I'm bouncing and then silky razor. So once again, right off the bat, I'm noticing that the Beauty Blender side does not blend out as easily and it doesn't share out the product as easily. Now, as I said, if you were doing your entire face using the beauty blender, then it wouldn't be a problem because there would be no difference with each side. But I do notice it because of the fact that I'm using two different sponges, two different halves of my face. But it does share it out, and it kind of gives the same look at the end of it if you fiddle enough. Which again, maybe personal preference in terms of, do you want your products to be so super shared out, or do you want your products to be a little bit more like full coverage or less shared out? So again, it's based on personal preference and what you prefer. The beauty blender also fits more snugly in my contour region just because of the size of it. It does not get as fat as the Black Gyal. So maybe a little bit easier to work with. But you can see, so like I didn't share out as much because it didn't share out as much, and it is significantly more pronounced on the beauty blender side. So that's my contour. Both sides look equal in terms of the blend. It's a significant difference between the two sides. So I'm going to just go ahead and apply my powder using sponges. The powder I'm using today is the Parlor Cake in the shade Biscuit Cake from Imagine Cosmetics. I used this previously once before, and I like the way the powder looks on my skin. So I'm going to be using it again today just to see how it does with non-cream product. So I have a little bit of the product on the sponge. It does work really easy with powdered material. It's not more difficult. The powder doesn't necessarily stick to the sponge and make it difficult to blend out. It's very easy to blend out. As you can see, that was super quick and easy without any patchiness in any area. And I like the way the sponge actually worked to apply my product. I'm going to do the same thing on the beauty blender side. So same thing, have the product on it. So the beauty blender does apply, again, more dense, so it does apply it in a more like dense application. It doesn't like share it out as much. And something that I do notice about the beauty blender, so this is the Gyal side. You can see that this side is more like uniformed. When I start to apply the powdered material with the beauty blender, it actually lifts some of my cream product underneath, which is something that I do not like, obviously, because I covered certain areas with extra. I don't expect it to be lifted when applying with a sponge. So you can definitely see that it is a little bit more patchy. It's not as nice in terms of the overall application. But from far you can't really tell much of a difference, but in terms of the product application, I prefer the Blend Gyal definitely 100% over the beauty blender. Fiddling with it a little bit more using the beauty blender actually made it worse, so I'm not going to fiddle anymore. So in terms of that, I do prefer the Blend Gyal side. So the next thing I'm going to apply is using a blush. Hopefully this doesn't ruin my blush. I tried using a sponge like a long time ago, and it kind of damaged my product. There you can actually see the wet spot. It never the product doesn't even come off there. So hopefully this doesn't ruin my blush. So far so good. So that does apply really nicely, and you can build up the blush using the sponge. It's not patchy at all. It actually applies it really nicely. I didn't expect it to apply so nicely. Like I said, I did try using a powdered blush with a sponge long ago, and it did not work out for me. So I'm pleasantly surprised by the way it does that, and surprisingly the sponge makes it blendable, but it also makes it buildable, which is something that's nice. You can actually like increase the intensity of the blush as you so desire. So doing the same thing. So again, it picks up product really easily. And applies it very, very similarly, to be honest. It's not patchy either. It's actually quite nice. I will say, because the beauty blender does apply a little bit more concentrated, this side looks a little bit more blown out and blended, and this side doesn't. But as I said, I can't really fiddle too much with the beauty blender on this side because it tends to lift off my foundation underneath, which is something I do not like, I don't enjoy. I went ahead and did my brows, and my lip gloss off camera, so I look a bit crazy. Harsh brows. I don't know how my brows ended up that way, but it is what it is. So I'm actually going to use that to apply some highlighter right now, and I'm using my all-time favorite highlighter ever. It's Whisper of Guilt by MAC, and I'm going to use the Gyal. I did a mistake. I really picked up too much, but let's see if we can be a little bit light-handed with the application. It is a little bit difficult to use a sponge, but I'm using the tip of it to just blend my highlights in on that side. I don't actually like the application of a sponge for highlight because it does apply a little bit patchy, but maybe when I put my mist on, it should be fine. Using the beauty blender now. So it's a similar application. Of course, you can kind of see it, but the beauty blender does apply it a little bit more smoothly, and I think it's because of how dense the beauty blender is compared to the Gyal. So this is the beauty blender side, and this is the Gyal side. From far, you can't really notice much of a difference, so it does look nice all together. But up close, the beauty blender does apply it more like compact, whereas the Gyal kind of sparses it out. I don't know if that's even a word. It makes it more sparse on the face, so it doesn't give more of a uniform look. But I'm guessing once I put my misting spray on, you will not notice a difference. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I'm using the Morphe Continuous Setting Spray. It's one of my favorites, and a fan that I bought at Wonderful Good. Right, so this is my face all misted. In terms of the highlighter, the beauty blender side does look nicer to me. It's more like compact, whereas the Gyal side not so much. But it's not bad. It's not like significantly different. I just prefer the beauty blender application of highlighter compared to the Gyal. Okay guys, so this is the finished look using the Gyal on this side. As you can see, looks really nice. And this side I used the beauty blender. Also looks very nice. They both look extremely similar in terms of the application of the product. You could have seen for yourselves exactly how both sides applied using two different sponges. They were quite comparable in certain instances, and in one or two cases they were very different. In terms of the overall experience using the Imagine Cosmetics Gyal, I will say that I am pleasantly surprised. In comparison to the beauty blender, I think the Gyal is very comparable for half the price. In fact, I actually think I would prefer to purchase the Gyal from Imagine Cosmetics because I like the way it applied the majority of the products on my face when compared to the beauty blender. And like I said, you can't go wrong with 60 TT when the beauty blender is 20 USD. And they have to add taxes and customs and shipping and all that jazz, when you could just get it from the suppliers of Imagine Cosmetics. So I give this sponge thumbs up. I really enjoyed using it. I thought it was really easy to use. It blended out very nicely. It gave a very natural finish to the skin, and I was actually pleasantly surprised with the way it applied my blush. So I hope you guys do check them out and give the Gyal a try. It's definitely worth it. So guys, that's it for the video. I hope you guys like, comment, share and subscribe to my channel, and until next time guys, bye!